Good morning, dear students. A warm welcome to all of you for today's digital session for the subject Science and Technology, Section A. Today, we are going to revise chapter number 4 from Section A, which is remaining measurement of matter. So, let us proceed towards our revision. In this chapter, we have studied the first activity to understand the law of conservation of matter. Our first topic is laws of chemical combination. Under that, we have the law of conservation of matter, and to understand, to study that law, we had seen a very small activity. In the activity, we had taken 56 grams calcium oxide, that is CaO, in a large conical flask, and 18 grams of water was added in it. After the reaction, the mass of the substance which was formed, that mass was measured, and what similarity did we find? What was our inference? Our first observation was calcium oxide, it combined with water and formed calcium hydroxide. Mass of the product calcium hydroxide which was found to be 74 grams, and when you add 56 grams plus 18 grams, it comes out to 74. So what we inferred was total mass of the reactants before the chemical reaction was found to be equal to the total mass of the product formed after the chemical reaction, and from this the first law, that is law of conservation of matter, was put forth. In the year 1785, French scientist Antoine Lavoisier, you can see his photograph over here, he inferred from his research that there is no rise or drop in the weight of matter during a chemical reaction. And based on his inference, he stated his first law, which says in a chemical reaction, the total weight of the reactants is same as the total weight of the products formed due to the chemical reactions. This is called the law of conservation of matter. Now, as it is a law which is put forth by any of the scientists, so you have to learn the law by heart. Our next law is law of constant proportion. In year 1794, the French scientist Proust, he stated this law. In his law, he mentioned the proportion by weight of the constituent elements in the various samples of a compound is fixed. If you take any compound, then the constituent elements which are present in the compound, they are present in the same proportion by weight, irrespective of the source. And here he had taken the example of water. The proportion by weight of hydrogen and oxygen in water is 1:8. Whatever the source may be, the water may be from the lake, the water may be in the form of snow. Similarly, the proportion by weight of carbon and hydrogen in carbon dioxide obtained from any source is 3:8. For example, in 44 grams of carbon dioxide, there is 12 grams of carbon and 32 grams of oxygen. So the proportion by weight of carbon and oxygen comes out to be 3:8. Here we have taken a very good example. When you prepare any recipe, then the ingredients are taken in proportion. Their weight in proportion, it remains same even if you increase the quantity. So for 1 kg of cake, if you are taking 1000 grams of biscuits, 500 grams of sugar, and when you increase the weight of the cake to 2 kg, then immediately your ingredients weight will vary in proportion to what is required. Immediately in place of 1000 gram biscuit, you will take 2000 gram biscuit. So the proportion by weight of biscuits, sugar, it will remain same. So that is the law of constant proportion. After studying both these laws, we had studied about a new topic which says atom, its size, mass and valency. So first we will study about the atom's size, which is known as atomic size. Now you know how an atom appears to be. How an atom appears to be, and based on it, the size of an atom is determined by its radius. You know, while drawing any circle, you have to take the radius of the circle into account, and here also the size of the atom is determined by its radius. Now what is this atomic radius? The atomic radius of an isolated atom, isolated means it is away from all the other atoms. It is the distance between the nucleus of the atom, that is the center, and its outermost orbit. Depending upon the number of orbits, the atomic radius will vary. More the number of orbits, more will be the atomic radius. And the unit for expressing this atomic radius is nanometers. You can see in this block the atomic radius in meters for different atoms are given. So for the exam you have to go through the entire chart. Our next topic is very important. How to calculate the mass of an atom, of any element. Now you know that the mass of an atom is concentrated in its nucleus, which is due to the protons and neutrons which are present in it. So this number of protons, the total number of protons and neutrons in the atomic nucleus, it is called the atomic mass number, and protons, neutrons together they are called as nucleons. Now we come to our main point, mass of an atom. You know how tiny an atom is, very tiny. So how to determine its mass? Scientists, they also struggled with this question, and it was really not possible. It was really difficult for the scientists of the 19th century to measure the atomic mass very accurately. So what they did was, they came up with the idea, they came up with the concept of relative mass of an atom. What do you mean by the concept of relative mass? Here, a reference atom was required for expressing the relative mass of an atom, and wholeheartedly they all came together and they selected the hydrogen atom as the reference atom. Now why hydrogen only was selected? Because it was the lightest. Hydrogen is the lightest element. So the hydrogen atom being the lightest, it was initially chosen as the reference atom. And relative mass of a hydrogen atom, which has only one proton in its nucleus, it was accepted as 1. Therefore, the magnitude of the relative atomic masses of various atoms, they became equal to their atomic mass number, that is protons plus neutrons. Now, how to express the relative mass of a nitrogen atom? Having accepted the relative atomic mass of hydrogen as 1, now you know that the mass of one nitrogen atom is 14 times that of a hydrogen atom. Therefore, the relative mass of nitrogen is 14. This is how the relative atomic masses of various elements, they were determined in that 19th century. But on this scale, the relative atomic masses of many elements came out to be fractional, and it was the biggest limitation of selecting hydrogen as the reference atom. So what the scientists did in the course of time, in the year 1961, instead of hydrogen, carbon atom was selected as the reference atom, and in this scale, the relative mass of carbon atom was accepted as 12. The relative atomic mass of one hydrogen atom compared to hydrogen carbon atom, it becomes 12 multiplied by 1 upon 12, that is 1. But today, we have highly accurate methods for measuring the mass of the atom directly. So instead of this concept of relative mass of an atom, now what we are following is the unified mass. unified mass has now been accepted as the unit of atomic mass, and that is called as Dalton, having symbol slightly like small u. So 1 Dalton is equal to 1.66053904 multiplied by 10 raised to minus 27 kg. So this value should be learnt by you. It can be asked under MCQs or true and false. The value of 1 Dalton. After measuring the mass of an atom, our next topic is what is meant by chemical symbols of elements. When you get entry in the class, the first thing which is provided to you is your roll number, which is specific and universal for each and every child. One roll number cannot be shared by two children. So similarly, why the roll number is given? So every time the teacher need not take your names. Any time during the exam, you do not have to write your full names. You can just write your roll number, and then the examiner, the teacher comes to know whose paper it is. So for the elements, every time to call out the elements with their names. If it is restricted only to calling, then also it's okay. But when it came ahead that we have to write different chemical reactions, chemical equations, that time calling out and stating the names of the elements every time became very difficult, and then the idea of giving the symbols for the elements came to the mind of the scientist, and here Dalton was the first to use signs representing different elements. He represented hydrogen by the sign, copper by the sign, but whatever is discovered in chemistry should be approved by IUPAC, that is International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. So there they found out some problem in allotting the signs, and then later on the current method of choosing the chemical symbols, it is based on the method which is invented by Berzelius, and in his method how he allotted the symbol, he selected the first letter of the element, the first letter in the name of the element, and if there are two elements with the same letter, then the first letter and the second letter, or the first letter and any other specific letter in the name. Not only that, while determining the symbol, sometimes the Latin names of the elements were also taken into consideration. For example, if you see sodium, then the symbol is Na, which is derived from the Latin name natrium. Or copper, the symbol is Cu from the Latin name cuprum. So how you can define a symbol? Symbol of an element is either the first letter or the first and the second another specific letter in its name, and of the two letters the first is always a capital letter and the second is small. So if you have to mention the symbol for chlorine, Cl, then C is capital, L is small. I hope you have followed up to chemical symbols of elements. Now a very small topic, what is molecular mass? You all know that molecules are made up of atoms, and molecular mass means the sum of the atomic masses of all the atoms which are present in the single molecule of any substance. If you take CO2, carbon dioxide, it is made up of C, that is carbon, one atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen, O2. So what will be the molecular mass? Total atomic masses of carbon and oxygen. So based on this, it is a sum of atomic masses. So the unit of atomic mass is applicable for molecular mass. So molecular mass is also expressed in the unit Dalton. Now by taking one or two examples, we will see how to calculate the molecular masses of any compounds. This all the numericals I have done for you from page number 51. Atomic masses will be provided to you. You have to calculate the molecular mass. Maybe the name of the compound will be given to you, sodium chloride. So first you have to write the chemical formula and then you have to calculate its molecular mass. So the first compound is NaCl. Here we will take one or two examples in our revision. Molecular mass of NaCl. Now you know NaCl is composed of Na and Cl. So sum of the atomic masses of Na and Cl, that is sodium and chlorine, that comes out to atomic mass multiplied by sodium multiplied by 1 plus atomic mass of chlorine multiplied by 1. Now atomic masses will be provided to you and multiply by 1 means value will remain same. So sodium's value is 23 and chlorine is 35.5. So 23 plus 35.5 comes out to 58.5 daltons. Next compound is MgCl2, that is magnesium chloride. Molecular mass of MgCl2 is, now here you can see there is one molecule of Mg and two molecules of chlorine. So sum of the atomic masses of magnesium and chlorine, atomic mass of magnesium plus atomic mass of chlorine multiplied by 2. So 24 plus chlorine is 35.5. So 35.5 multiplied by 2. 24 plus 71 comes out to 95, and in this way you can calculate the molecular mass of any compound, provided you should know its molecular formula and atomic masses should be, you can say the values should be put properly in the sum and the calculations should be perfect. Now we go to our next topic, that is mole. What do you mean by mole? A mole is that quantity of a substance whose mass in grams is equal in magnitude to the molecular mass of that substance in daltons. So if you take up an example of oxygen, you will come to know what is mole. So molecular mass of oxygen, molecular mass is 32 daltons. So 32 grams of oxygen is 1 mole of oxygen. So if you speak about carbon dioxide, molecular mass of carbon dioxide is 44. So 44 grams of carbon dioxide is 1 mole of carbon dioxide. Or if you take the example of water, molecular mass of water is 18. Therefore 18 grams of water make 1 mole of water. Now to calculate the number of moles of a substance, you have to use the formula mass of a substance in grams upon molecular mass of that substance, and this formula we have seen, we have applied in solving the numerical examples, the textual numerical examples. The next is Avogadro's number. Here I had told you, you just have to remember the number. What do you mean by Avogadro's number? Now the number of molecules in 1 mole of any substance is always constant. When I speak about 1 dozen, anything, banana, any fruit, then it means 12 fruits, 12 bananas. When I speak about 1 gross of notebooks, it means 144 notebooks. When I say a batsman has scored a century, century means 100 runs. So similarly, 1 mole of any substance, it stands for 6.022 multiplied by 10 raised to 23 molecules. So when you speak about 1 mole of any substance, it means 6.022 into 10 raised to 23 molecules, and the Avogadro's number value is 6.022 multiplied by 10 raised to 23. So remember this number. And next topic, but very important, is valency. In short, I have told you, valency means the combining capacity of any element, the tendency of an element to donate, accept or share the electrons according to the requirement to become stable is known as valency. Now, to calculate valency, you should know the capacity, the maximum capacity of each shell. So, for the first shell, that is K, the maximum capacity is 2 electrons, L shell is 8 electrons, M shell 18 and N shell it is 32, and this maximum capacity is derived by the formula 2n square by substituting the value of shell. N is 1, N is 2, N is 3 and N is 4. You can calculate the maximum capacity, and then by taking n number of examples, I have told you how to calculate valency. Hydrogen, valency is 1, helium 2, lithium 2, 1. In the outermost orbit, 1 electron is there, so valency is 1. Next is beryllium. atomic number is 4, valency is 2, boron, valency is 3, carbon, valency is 4. After carbon, you can see in the outermost shell 5 electrons are there. So what will nitrogen do? Instead of donating 5 electrons, it will become stable by accepting 3 electrons. So it will become 5 plus 3, 8 in the second shell. So valency is 3. For oxygen, valency is 2. For fluorine, valency is 1. Neon, the atomic number is 10, electronic configuration is 2, 8. So in the first shell there are 2 electrons, second shell 8 electrons. So it will neither donate nor share nor accept electrons, keeping valency 0. By keeping the concept of valency in mind, we are going to study a small topic about formation of sodium chloride, that is a compound which is formed by the combination of 2 atoms, sodium and chlorine. Now electronic configuration of sodium is 11. So 8 atomic number is 11. So electronic configuration is 281. For chlorine, whose atomic number is 17, the configuration stands 287. Now if you look at both of them, both are having 2 electrons in the first shell, 8 electrons in the second shell, but sodium is having this 1 electron extra, whereas chlorine requires 1 more electron to complete its or become stable. So what will both of them do? So when both of them will come together, sodium will donate its 1 electron to chlorine. So 1 electron, when it is lost, it will form a positive sodium ion with a stable configuration 2, 8. This chlorine atom will accept this 1 electron, so plus 1 electron, and form a chloride ion with a negative sign. So sodium plus chlorine, when they combine, they form sodium chloride, and the valency of both sodium as well as chlorine is 1. Why? Because sodium is donating 1 electron, so valency is 1. Chlorine is accepting 1 electron, so valency of both the elements is 1. From this, you can derive one more definition for valency. The number of electrons that an atom of an element gives away or takes up while forming an ionic bond is called the valency of that element. Variable valency is a small topic. Valency you have studied just now. Variable. Variable means changing. Now under different conditions, the atoms of some of the elements, they give away or take up different number of electrons, and in such cases those elements they exhibit more than one valency at a time. Now each element means valency will also be 1, but there are some elements like copper, mercury, iron who will exhibit more than one valency because under different conditions they take up or give away different electrons. So copper valency is 1 and 2, mercury 1 and 2, iron it is 2 and 3. Radicals, this chart I have already worked out for you, and I had also discussed during the explanation. The cation and anion, a compound will be provided to you, either it will be a base or an acid. So you have to find out the cations and anions. Now cations will always be with a positive charge and anion will be with the negative charge. Now suppose you take an example of NaOH, that is sodium hydroxide. So sodium is the cation. So sodium Na with the positive charge and OH is the anion. So OH with the negative charge. HCl. HCl is an acid. So H with the positive charge is the cation and Cl with the negative charge is an anion. So cationic radicals are called basic radicals and anionic radicals are called the acidic radicals. Our last topic for ending this chapter, this revision, is the steps for writing the chemical formula. If you have to find out the chemical formula of any compound, the first step is to write the symbols of the radicals. So Na and SO4. Now the compound here is sodium sulfate. So you have written the symbols for sodium and sulfate. Second step is below that particular radical, you are going to write their valency. So the valency for sodium is 1, for sulfate it is 2. Now teacher, from where to get this valencies? The entire chart is given on page number 56 of your textbook. Even though that chart is removed out from your syllabus, but while calculations, while writing the molecular formula, you have to make use of it. Next is to cross multiply. So Na multiply by 2, Na2, SO4 multiply by 1, SO4. So the chemical formula for sodium sulfate is Na2SO4. With this, we complete with the revision for chapter number 4, and thus the revision for section A is also over. Section A, reflection of light, we have already completed it recently. So a small part of it is left. Question number 6. Question number 5, one numerical is done for you, and you have to study that only one numerical for the exam. Other two, you do not solve it. You can just omit that, and you move on to question number 6. 3 mirrors are created from a single sphere. See, from a single sphere, 3 mirrors are created. Which of the following? Pole, center of curvature, radius of curvature, principal axis will be common. You know all these terms related to the spherical mirrors we have studied. So they have asked, if 3 mirrors are created from a single sphere, which of the following will be common to them, which will not be common? Now you know that these 3 mirrors, the 3 pieces are from a single sphere. So center of curvature and radius of curvature will be common. So your answer should be center of curvature and radius of curvature will be common for all the 3 mirrors, and the remaining is pole and principal axis, which will vary. So pole and principal axis will not be common. So this is your textual question which was left out on page number 127. Question number 1. Whatever is the reduced part of the syllabus, that questions I have already excluded. Ray diagrams I had not made you to draw, and along with that, for this chapter only one numerical you have to study, that is 5A. With this, I declare that the portion and the revision for your second online assessment is over. Now it's your time, dear children. You have to spare out some time in reading all the chapters for science if you wish to score full marks in your assessment exam. Also, offline, I have informed the students that I have not put any of the objectives from the textual part. If you want the full marks for the objectives, you should read the lesson, because all the objectives I have asked from within the chapter. So you should take a note of it, because reading is extremely important for science and technology. Activities, diagrams, numericals, practice them properly. For 5 marks, you have to prepare all the 3 cycles of section B. You have to prepare about the different principles of solid waste management. Your section A, the derivations for kinetic energy, potential energy, force equation, everything. Unless and until you practice and write it down, you will not be confident in answering them. And be very sincere in your exams, even though you will be attending them from home. Just consider it that you are sitting in the school and attempting the exam. Be very sincere to yourself, and whatever marks you earn it with full sincerity and truthfulness. That's all from my side. I wish you all a best of luck for your second online assessment. Study well and rock out with flying colors, flying marks. Thank you, dear children.